In this video, I will be talking to you, presumably a college student, about what is expected of you in a college class. This definitely goes for all of my classes, but this is also basically all going to apply to every class that you might be taking in college. These are the responsibilities that you have and the expectations of you to be able to get something good out of that class. Why am I making this video? Well, anybody who's been teaching for a while has noticed something really changing in the past few years about the kinds of ways that students interact with their classes. And this isn't a judgment of you. This is not a judgment of your generation. I think it's pretty obvious what happened, and it was the pandemic. Pandemic happened, and of course we got really loose about the kinds of expectations that we had for our students, which makes sense, right? There's a pandemic going on. How much do we really care that you turn something in on time? We're really not going to let you do that sort of thing, right? But as we are progressing further into, we're not in the exact crisis mode that we were, well, we got to get back to our standards, because it's become pretty clear that students are not learning as much in this new setting. Part of this is that it's not you guys. I think it's just that you have not been set up with the expectations. You don't know what it is that you are supposed to do, that there is a standard that we are no longer meeting, because why would you know? You weren't in college when this all started, right? And we want you to get value out of college, right? The problem here is not just that you're failing to live up to some standard or making it easy for us. It's that it's pretty obvious that you are learning less. You're getting less out of this extremely expensive experience. And even if you're just cynical, you're just in it for the degree and you don't care about learning anything, well, the easier it gets to slide through college without learning anything, the less value the actual degree itself is going to have. And the more the actual things that you learn in college are going to be important to getting value out of it. Keep in mind, education isn't something that you can just buy and then you have it. It's more like having a personal trainer, right? We, the educators, are there to expose you to new things, to show you how to do new stuff, and then to give you guidance on how you can practice these things yourselves. If you don't do that last part, the actual engagement stuff coming from you, if you don't put in effort, you're not going to remember any of this stuff. You're not going to learn anything out of it. You're not going to be able to use it in the future, whether or not you need to. So that said, what are some of the expectations that we have of you when you are in a college class? The first one is that you attend the class. So this is an expectation that we have. If you are having a face-to-face class or any sort of class where there are scheduled class times, we expect you to be there at every single class period. Now, of course, there are always exceptions. You get sick, whatever, things happen. But that really should be the exception and not a thing that you do regular. We anticipate that you will be there at all college sessions. If you've missed something from a day of class, then it is on you to figure out what it is that you missed. Maybe your professor posts a recording of whatever happened in class that day, but if not, then you got to figure it out by checking all the other materials, asking other students in the class. And yeah, maybe you have a work requirement sometime, but you really should be trying to set up your work schedule so that it does not interfere with your class. This is how college students have been doing it for decades. And if you think about it, have you ever calculated out how much you spend in effect to attend a single day of class? It's probably more than you make working at your job. So if you take off a day of class to work an extra hour or two at your job, you're probably losing money, right? So that's something to think about. We've designed the class so that you can learn all the material if you attend class. Next, it is your responsibility to stick to the schedule. There are due dates on your assignments, and you should be expected to hit those due dates. Again, things happen. Sometimes you need an extension, but it really should be the exception and not the rule. I answer way more requests for extensions than I used to before the pandemic happened. Students were still working just as much as they were back then as they are now, but students are less able to hit those deadlines, and partially it's because we let them not hit those deadlines, but really it is on you to hit those deadlines and actually turn things in on time. It means, organizing your schedule. If you are running up against a due date and you think it's going to take you longer, instead of asking for an extension, maybe start the task earlier. Just a good skill to learn. That's just for general life. Next up, you are expected to read or engage with the material that we give you. Often in a class, we will give you some sort of reading assignment. There might also be some lecture slides, things like that. You are expected to actually do the reading that we assign you. Even if everybody around you is not doing the reading, we expect you to do it. If I notice that there's some students are having difficulty with a particular thing, I might assign some additional thing that will help you figure it out. And if you don't do it, then you're going to have a hard time figuring out what's going on in the course. I could teach you a lot more if I could assume that you would actually do that. I can't tell you, there's a lot of times when I've given stuff that just the answer's in the reading, and then nobody gets it because I talked about it a little bit in class, but the actual whole thing just right straight out was in the reading, and people didn't do the reading, and so they missed out. We have compiled materials for you to try to make this as easy as possible to help you through the material. But if you don't accept the helpful materials that we're giving you, right, we're not giving it to you to ruin your day or waste your time. We're giving it to you because it will help you learn these things. If you don't do the reading, then that thing that's there to help you learn is not there. You're going to have a harder time. You're going to learn less. We don't want that for you. Next up, we would like you to limit your Googling. When you are faced with a homework assignment or something like that, and you're thinking, well, I don't know how to answer this, and there are a couple of options available to you. Probably the best options that are available to you might be going back to the material. If you didn't do some of the reading, maybe go do the reading. Review the slides or the material from your class. Review your notes. Maybe go to a tutoring center. But something that I've noticed is a lot more recently, students will simply Google for the answer the first chance that they get, or maybe use some other sort of tool like that. Maybe they'll go to a shared classroom Discord where people are talking about the course, or maybe sharing their answers. And this isn't good, right? This should not be a way that you are trying to get information. We're asking you a question because here's the thing. We don't care about the output of the homework. I don't care what answer you put on your homework. Really, that's not the point of it. The point of homework is not for you to provide me with a correct list of answers. We're not going to do anything with this, right? I'm not going to publish your homework. The point of homework is just like the personal trainer. It is an opportunity for you to practice. So if you don't practice, if you take the shortcut and you just find somebody who has written out the answer somewhere else, then there really wasn't any point of doing the homework in the first place. It was a complete waste of time. And I don't want that for you, right? I want you to learn the material. Also, it often isn't correct anyway, right? The thing about Google or generative AI or all of this stuff is that it's very, very helpful at producing answers, whether or not those answers are correct. In order to be able to fruitfully use Google or generative AI, which I think those are great tools, you should learn how to use them. They are great sources of information. But in order to actually be able to use them properly, you need to be able to recognize you already sort of have to know the answer when you're looking for it. Otherwise, it won't work. At the beginning of your class, as you're learning the material, you don't have the ability to distinguish a good answer from a bad answer. That's why you're in the class in the first place. After you learn this stuff, suddenly Google and generative AI become much more useful because you can now help it to sort the good stuff from the bad. I can't tell you how many times I get back an answer on a homework assignment that is clearly Googled and wrong because somebody Googled the terms of the question and they got back an answer, but it was the wrong answer, or it was an answer to a different question, and they couldn't tell the difference because they hadn't learned the material yet. To give you one example, in my econometrics class, I ask students to write down the equation for a t-statistic. Now, here's the equation for a t-statistic. This is the general equation for a t-statistic. This is the correct answer. This is what we learn in class. It's in the textbook. It's in the slides. It's in the reading materials that I hand out. But when I ask this question, I don't get back this answer. Sometimes I do, but a lot of students will Google the formula for a t-statistic and they'll come back with this answer. This is the formula for a t-statistic if you are testing a mean. That's not what we're doing in our class. That's not what we learned in the materials. It's not in the book. But it is what you get if you Google. And it is the wrong answer because that's not what I asked for. And this is a very small example, but it's repeated many, 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 many times. Google is only a good source if you can actually recognize and tell the difference between a good answer and a bad answer, which you often can't do until after you've learned the material. On that note, you really got to actually struggle through your own homework. If it's difficult, yeah, that's part of it, but you have to actually do the work. Going into a classroom Discord with your friends where somebody posts the answers to their homework and you just sort of paste it into your own thing, which again, I know happens because I will often get an entire class getting the same question wrong in the same way. And then the next term, the whole class gets the same question entirely wrong in an entirely different way, which doesn't happen if it's just a hard question. That's what happens when people are sharing their answers with each other. And this is not going to help you learn, right? The point of homework is not to produce the correct answer. The point of homework is to make you practice. If you don't practice, we just wasted our time. Just go home. Just don't do it, right? You have to actually struggle through it yourself or else there's no point. It will not help you learn. Seeing somebody's correct answer and saying, oh, I see that that's the correct answer. Now I understand. You haven't actually learned anything there. I can tell you why I know that that's the case because I am in class giving you the correct answers the whole time. If all that it took to know the correct answer was to see the correct answer, you would have already learned it from class. You wouldn't need the homework in the first place. So you have to actually work through it yourself. You have to put something out there. You have to put in the effort or else you won't learn anything. All right, lastly, more of an admin note, you got to review the syllabus materials. That's part of the expectations for you. And you have to review any sort of announcements, logistical information that we give you in class. It's always a bummer when I give the same announcement about when the final exam is 8 times in class, and then I still get questions about it. It tells me that people are not listening, which doesn't feel great for me, which is one thing, but then also means that you're missing out on information. As I make this video, a bunch of people, about a third of the class, turned in the wrong assignment after I had announced maybe 4 or 5 times in class what the correct assignment was. It is on you. You are adults, right? You are managing your own schedule. You're managing your own projects. Unlike in a high school class, it's not my job to do the organization for you. It's my job to present you with the stuff and present you with all the information that you need. And then it's your job to organize yourself and make sure that you have the correct information. That means reading Canvas announcements or whatever, management system that you're on. It means if I send you an email, reading the email and taking in that information. All right, so those are the expectations that we have of you in class. Again, I don't mean this to be judgmental at all. I know I gave a couple of examples of students maybe not living up to this. But again, I don't think it's the students' fault. I think it's that the expectations that have been set for students, especially during the pandemic, have not led to the best habits. And I think that that's something that we need to sort of claw back a little bit. And also your professors do expect these things of you. Some of them will not tell you. I'm telling you, some of them will not tell you and they'll expect it anyway, and then you'll fail their class because you didn't realize that there was a standard that you were being held to that you had never heard of or been exposed to before. Well, here it is. I'm exposing you to you now. This will also make your college class time more valuable. You will learn more out of it. This is the only time, well, it's probably the last time in your life when somebody will really pay attention to the work that you produce and give you feedback that is explicitly and intentionally designed to make you better. And so you got to take advantage of that. After you're done, you'll spend a whole bunch of money. You'll probably have some student loans to pay off. And if you haven't learned anything in the process, which you might not learn that much, if you're not holding yourself to these standards, then it was a kind of a big waste of time. And that's kind of sad. So hopefully let's get around that. And I'll enjoy having you in class if you're in my class. Thank you.